Hello, I am David W. Parker. This is Programming Today I Learned Rails. We are going to add all of the rest of CRUD to our comments. We'll also go ahead and change our post so that it returns some initial comments with the post. We got a lot to do, so let's dive in real quick. So here's a list of the files changed. I've gone ahead and downloaded Git Graph extension in VS Code, so we'll be following along that rather than me opening all the files, and we can kind of jump through it a little bit. So I'll probably be going back and forth just a little bit. So you can see here's the recent episode, and here's all of the things that have been changed. So let's go ahead and knock it out. First thing to note is in our posts, we added a hooks. So let's go look at the concern for that. So that lives under the post hooks concern here. And the only thing it is we have this before create set comments cache. And what that does is it just cuts the comments to 0. We'll probably go ahead and add a migration to have it default to 0 as well. And that would make this code redundant and unnecessary. But this is a quick step for right now. The next thing that we did was we went to have a bunch of new serializers. Just changed each of these from attributes to attribute. So that one, show, has a lot of new stuff. So let's just go to open this in the full format here. So we can jump back and forth. So the first thing is we're going to return the comments count, and then we're going to have this new comments attribute. So what we're going to do is say we're going to return comments with it, and we're going to say post.comments. We're going to include the user because we want to get that preemptively, so not have n+1 queries. And then the most recent 5. So order by ID and limit to 5. And then we have a new serializer for that. And it's going to be a regular one with taking in those comments and as a collection. Let's go ahead and open this. This is brand new. So this looks similar to some of the other ones. The main difference is we don't need all of the information. So if I just look at the other serializers, I don't need the commentable because we already know we belong to a post. So a little less being returned here because we don't need all of it. So that is new, and this should all look familiar to you by now. The next thing we did is, so we have these two. The show is brand new, so that's actually identical to the index. So we'll look at that with one exception. So the show and then the index. So this one, we have the others. And we need to do is do the same here. But basically, in fact, we do need to add the same proc. On the show serializer, the one thing we changed here is we added a proc, meaning it has an if statement here. And the library allows us to optionally not return something. So we'll go ahead and say if :proc do, and if this statement is true, it'll render out this attribute. If not, then it won't. So we're going to just make sure that the user is present. And if they're present, then we'll go ahead and display for others. And in fact, like I said, we need to have that on the index. I just forgot to add that there. And the reason for that is with this new bit of code that we're adding for adding and creating, updating, deleting comments, as mentioned previously, we're not actually deleting the comment because there might be some others that have replied, but we do want to clear out the user who made the comment. So that means that user will be gone, and so this will be nil, and we don't want to hit that error. So that is all the changes there. In our policy, this is pretty simple. We just made sure that it can always create, and we can always go ahead and destroy if we are the user who created the comment, and we can also delete or update if we are the user who has created the comment. So pretty simple logic there. So that covers the policy and our serializers. We'll get down to the request specs at the end here. Go ahead and look at our comment controller. So we added all of the create code, the destroy code, the show code, and the update code. So you could see that's what's changed here. These were commented out before, and I kind of changed the signatures a little bit on some of these. See, I believe on, yeah, just this one up here for the create comment change to have the user and then the params. So let's go ahead and look at the comment logic where this lies. So that lives in comment logic. So comment logic, just to have it not be green, converted the name to create comment exclamation on each of these rather than add comment. We also, within our delete, I removed this line here that was unnecessary because now, since we have the authorized comment, that means we already know that this belongs to the user who is authorized that deletion. So we don't need to do this extra lookup again of a comment. So we don't need to do 2 queries when we only need 1. And we know we're not deleting it, but we are setting it to ID of nil, as well as the deleted at time of now. And the body is now just deleted. And then the update comment, I believe, had the same thing. Yep, we were looking it up before with user and params, but now we already have the comment. And again, this goes back down to our authorized statement. We already know the owner of this comment, the user, is authorized to do this action because it'll fail if they aren't the one within the policy, which is the user. So, and then we just send back the update params. All of this is all the same still, and everything else is the same. This comment show should look basically identical to the post show. And we don't have a slug though. We're not going to keep slugs for comments or add slugs for comments. And that is all the logic that has been added in here. And the same thing with the create comment was changed there. So that will be in the commentable, which was also changed. You could see I just changed the name. That's the only thing that's changed in the commentable. So that is that's all the code changes. The only other thing we changed were the specs. So let's go ahead and look at the specs. In fact, I'll just bring it up in the Git graph still. And let's look at our object creators first. We changed this from add comment to create comment, so that was obviously necessary. The post request spec changed. I just changed the wording from post to record in a few places. And then down below, I went ahead and checked for a couple extra things here. So I wanted to check that we're returning 5 comments. So I added a new spec for that, and it returns 5 comments with the post. So I'm creating 5 extra comments here, and then I'm just checking the length of those, and I'm checking that the ID of the user of the comment is the same. We could do something and change this to be a different user and check that and check every attribute. But for now, this is sufficient for what I'm desiring. So that's basically it that has changed within the post request spec. And finally, the comment request spec has all sorts of new. So we'll walk through each of this really quick, but it should mirror basically the post request spec. I will continue to add specs out because it's nice to have and it's good to see examples, but know that they're going to be fairly simplistic. So we don't have a user. We can't post 401. As a user, it should let me create a comment on a post. So create user, create post. Here's my parameters, commentable ID on that post, and then we could check the body. I could also even check the commentable and all that. I've chosen not to right now. Deletion. Could go ahead and delete without a user. 401, cannot do it. As a user, should not let me destroy a comment. So this is as a different user. So user 2 cannot destroy 40, it'll say 404. And that's just due to our application. If you don't recall, we're just going to go ahead and return 404s right now. And as a user owner, it should let me destroy it. And by destroy, it doesn't technically destroy it. As you know, it just sets the user to nil, and it sets the body to deleted. And this is the test that I used that made sure to do that serializer I showed you. Right here, which sets that to nil. And I had ran that before and it blew up, of course. That's why you kind of want to test a little bit more thoroughly than I am, but I'm just kind of showing some basic examples. But that showed, hey, this is nil, and it blew up. So now I want to check, hey, this is nil, and I'm checking the body's deleted. Index we already did. Show, can't show a random one if it doesn't exist, 404. If it does exist, just go ahead and check the ID as well. Finally, update, the last set here, without a user, can't update, 401. It's a non-user, meaning not the owner of the comment. It should show 404. And as the owner, it'll update appropriately. And we can check our coverage here and see that our comments controller is fully spec'd out here. And check the serializers. And it says 100%, but I've only checked, you can see, it doesn't actually have these lines highlighted because I didn't actually check those really. So just something to be wary of or be aware of is to know exactly what is being checked. So that's it for this episode. We got comments. You can create, update, delete. And we also are bringing back a few initial comments, which we'll be using for the purposes of non-JavaScript users. One thing actually I'm going to do off camera, and I'm just going to tell you now, is if I'm going to go to post serializer, where I am returning 5 right now, I'm going to pass in a proc. Actually, I'm going to pass in params here, and I'm going to have an optional parameter to display more than 5, to display all. And so I'll check if there's a param, and I'll say if param all present, or blank rather, then comments equal comments.limit 5. So it'll be basically something like that, or if it's all present, basically I want to be able to get all of the comments for non-JavaScript users. I'll do that off camera. You can go ahead, we'll go look at it the next episode, but I will be using that in the next episode for the Svelte episode. So if you like this content, subscribe, that'd be fantastic. And support on Patreon and buy me a coffee. Thank you so much. And big shout out to Steve for the support on Patreon. Every support helps. So thank you so much, Steve.